So we're going to start by looking at the different stages. I'm going to write all over the middle part of this chart, and we'll come back and talk about the questions at the end. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in here and kind of write all over the place. This chart gives us 3 pieces of information that we need to look at for every stage, okay? The yellow line, the green line, and the blue line. So our yellow line that we see at the top is our birth rate, and the green line that you see on the bottom is the death rate. The blue line is the total population, but I'm going to come back and I'm going to explain that a little bit more in the next stage. So if we're looking at just stage 1, it's called high stationary. What do we notice about our statistics for birth rate and for death rate? Our birth rate and our death rate is what? How would you describe it? Nick?
The same.
It's the same, and where is it at located, like locationally? High. Yeah, that's the word I'm looking for. It's high. Okay, so here we have a very high BR and DR, birth rate and death rate. We have really high birth rate and death rate, and Nick said that they're kind of the same, right? Is that like a good thing if you have a lot of people being born but also a lot of people dying? Ella, you're shaking your head no. Why?
Well, I mean, if people are dying and people are being born, they're not really like changing.
Yeah, you're kind of canceling each other out, right? If you have just as many people dying as you do being born, then like that's probably not very stable, right? Or I guess it is stable, but there's no growth, right? Yeah, so maybe what are some things that could be causing a high death rate or really a high birth rate? What? Yeah, disease. So we're talking like no health care here. So Avishai was kind of reading my mind there. So people are dying when, like, the reason people are dying in this stage is because we're really unstable. Like, people are dying due to diseases and, like, conflict, and along with disease, like, you don't have any sanitation here. Okay, so most of our death rate is coming from just people not being able to survive diseases or getting sick at all because we don't have any health care with this stage. This is typical of like an agrarian society. Like, this happened like a long time ago, okay? Like, think colonial era and like before, okay? So like a long time ago. And it's also important to note that there's not a country in this stage today, okay? Because everybody has at least industrialized at least a little bit, okay? So there's no country that is in stage 1 today, all right? So think like the reason, like really you have to think why are so many people dying in this stage is because we couldn't fight any sort of disease because medicine was not a thing, okay? Or people were dying in war or conflict or something, okay? So these agrarian societies, small villages, like small communities, were not like really massive, big countries really at this point, like definitely not the country type of system that we have in our world today, for sure, okay? So like think rural, smaller areas, like long time ago in the past, okay? What is our population structure? We talked about this with our pyramids the other day. What does our population look like? I mean, like age-wise. If we don't have any health care.
Not a lot of old people.
Yeah, not a lot of old people. So like we are very young. That's a V. V young. We're very young. Okay, people are not living a long time. Also, that birth rate's still really high because we don't have any health care. We might not have all of our kids make it to adulthood, right? So we're having a lot of kids. That total fertility rate is really high. And then people are also dying a lot too, okay? So important thing from this stage is that countries are not here today. Everybody has at least moved on to stage 2, okay? This might be really isolated areas of the world today, but for real, all countries are in at least stage 2. Okay? Any questions from stage 1? All right, let's move on to stage 2. So let's talk about the statistics that we see in stage 2. With our birth rate and our death rate, what do we notice here about our statistics? What's different? What happens? What'd you say, Amin?
The birth rate's still high, but
Yeah.
the death rate is like a lot lower.
Yeah, our death rate. That's what I want to talk about. Our death rate drops, right? Our birth rate is still high. You still see the yellow line up at the top. So birth rate's still high. We still have a lot of kids, but the difference now is that our death rate is dropping, okay? So when countries today have at least a little bit of access to medicine, we have a little bit of sanitation, and so that's going to be our difference between stage 1 and stage 2. That's why everybody has at least right now in stage 2 in our world, okay? We still have a high birth rate, so what does that tell us about like our families? Are we still having a lot of kids? Yeah, why are we having a lot of kids in this stage? Yep, they're your workers. Okay, we're going to call them assets because, yes, there are workers. Or you need more kids probably to help you out with whatever type of jobs your family is involved with. Okay, so kids are needed in this stage. In this type of family structure, kids are needed. So they're called assets. They're gonna help, okay? So let's talk about our blue line here. This is the third piece of information that, or this third piece, like statistical piece that we need to learn about is the rate of natural increase. So this term right here, natural increase. This correlates with our total population, okay? If you think about having a lot of kids, right? Our yellow line, our birth rate is really high, but now our death rate is starting to drop. All of this gray area here in between the birth rate and the death rate, that's your growth rate, right? Because if you have a lot of kids being born and now you're having less people die, then all of that room in between that birth rate and that death rate is how much you're growing in a country, right? That's how many people are going to be there. So the difference between the birth rate and the death rate is called the rate of natural increase, RNI, or NRI, either way, same thing, okay? Rate of natural increase. That is really talking about your growth rate. How much are you growing? And that blue line down at the bottom shows you kind of that growth rate. It shows you your total population, okay? So in stage 2, what do we notice about our blue line? Yeah, it's increasing like what? Like a lot. Like that's not what I want. Like rapid growth here. Rapid growth. Okay, that blue line is like really shooting up in this stage because the difference between our birth rate and our death rate is so different, okay? It's so much. The way you calculate rate of natural increase is birth rate minus the death rate. Minus the death rate divided by 1,000, okay? So that's how you technically calculate it. So really you're looking at the difference between the birth rate and the death rate. And we can see here that total population, that blue line, shoots up, okay? You see rapid growth in this stage. Kind of like what we were talking about last week with a pyramid that we were looking at. What pyramid goes with stage 2 if we were talking about rapid growth? What were we talking about last week? What pyramid has rapid growth? What did you say, Neil? Yeah, the triangle, right? The triangle has rapid growth because all of those kids are at the bottom of the pyramid, right? And so they're just going to keep moving up and having more kids. So what type of country is this? Not an NIC. An LDC. Our LDC countries are the ones that had the triangle pyramids and had all the kids at the bottom, right? That birth rate is really high. When you see a triangle-shaped pyramid like that, your birth rate at the bottom is really high because you have the most kids, right? Do you remember talking about that and then filling out that chart with all those pyramids? Yeah. Okay. So you're going to see a lot of growth here. And now we're just specifically looking at the birth rates and the death rates. Okay. The difference here is that the death rate really drops. And so therefore our total growth of the population then skyrockets. Okay. Does this make sense? You guys are awfully quiet today.
Wait, you said
Yes.
that stage 2 is LDC or NIC?
LDCs. LDCs, okay? So at least every country in the world is here, okay? Or in stage 2 because we kind of have a little bit of access to sanitation, a little bit of access to medicine. It's not the best, definitely not the best in the world, but that's what's going to start changing that death rate to drop so much, even though our birth rate remains high because we still need kids in a country like this in this stage, okay? Yeah? All right, let's move on to stage 3 now. What do we notice about our statistics in stage 3? Ooh, our birth rate starts to go down. Actually, I'm going to write that in red. Yeah, so we start to see our birth rate declining. What else do we notice? Yep, population increasing, but maybe what's the difference in stage 3 versus stage 2 with our population increase? Maybe what type of growth? Is it rapid growth like it was from stage 2? No. We're going to call it like moderate growth. Okay, so we have moderate growth because our birth rate is declining, right? That yellow line is going down. What about our green line? What do we notice about our green line? Do what? Yeah, our death rate is starting to slow down. Slow. I'll put death rate slow because it's not as dramatic as it was in stage 2, right? So death rate starting to slow down. Our birth rate is the difference here, okay? So let's start putting things together with what we know from all of our conversations that we've been having in class. What is going to change the birth rate of a country? Ooh, better health care. I heard something from that back table. What did you say? Yeah, when women get opportunities. Yeah, so maybe like education and jobs, and we start thinking about family planning, right? All of the things that happen in this stage. What sets all of this in motion? What sets the better healthcare, the education, the jobs? What is that difference? What does it first? Yep, thank you. Industrialization. That is what is happening in stage 3. Industrialization. I have to write small. That's the big idea for stage 3. It's when you hit industrialization, all of these other things are going to start to come together, okay? That's when you start to see the difference in the birth rate start to drop. Think about like Taslima from the Don't Panic video, right? She was going around educating women on family planning, on contraception, right? She had jobs. They were changing that mindset to having fewer kids because they were going through industrialization. That was a good stage 3 country, okay? So what type of country is probably a stage 3 country going to be? NIC. Yeah, an NIC, probably. An NIC. And then since our birth rate is now starting to decline, what is our pyramid now going to look like? What's a good pyramid that's going to go with this stage? I see your hands. I see all of your hands like trying to act it out, right? Like the house, right? Because your birth rate is starting to stable off now. So your bottom part of the pyramid is going to start to be straight, and then you'll still probably see a triangle at the top of it, okay, because your birth rate is starting to decline, okay? Does that part make sense? Okay, let's talk about stage 4. Let's move on to stage 4. What do we notice about all of our statistics that we see? What's given for us in stage 4? What do we see? Yellow line, green line, blue line. What do you see?
Population is really high.
Total population is high at this point, yes. What do we see about the growth, though? Actually, before we talk about the growth, though, you have to look at the statistics of the birth rate and the death rate. Where's the birth rate and the death rate? They're both low, right? So BR and DR, I'm going to write it down here. Birth rate and death rate are now really low, okay? That yellow line is above the green line, and so therefore, Ryder, do you have a question? Okay. So therefore, if they're both low, now Nancy, what did you say about our total population? Well, you told me total population is high, yes, but with our growth rate, Nick, how are we going to
Stable.
Yes, stable growth. We have stable growth because our birth rate and our death rate are now pretty close to being the same, right? They're both low, but we have a high population because we've already gone through the industrialization, right? In a stage 4 country, you've already gone through stage 2 and stage 3. That's what increased your population. And now it's stage 4, and now we're finally kind of stable here, okay? So a stage 4 country is a post-industrial country, post-industrial, which means we have the best everything, okay? We have the best healthcare, we have the best education, economies, technology, we have all the best things, okay? Kids here, kids in this stage, kids are considered liabilities. I didn't spell that right. Liabilities. Which means, do you have to have kids in this stage if you already have a high population? You don't need them now for workers, right? Because you have more industrialized type of jobs. You have the tertiary and the quaternary types of jobs now in a country like this, okay? So you don't necessarily need kids, but I want you to think about all of the things that it takes to like raise you, right? What are all of the things that you have available to you? I bet you all have 2, if not 3 devices, right? Think about all of the cars that you have at home. Think about the clothes that you wear. Think about the food that your parents buy, right? And like you're not really helping out a whole lot probably. I mean, surely you help your parents. I know that you're good humans to help your parents, but like are you earning a lot of money to be helping pay bills and pay for your clothes and pay for your food and pay for all of the things that you need? Probably not a whole lot at this point, okay? So you're considered a liability. Now it's a choice to have kids, right? It's an extra thing to have kids, whereas in a stage 2 country, you needed kids because that was your workers, right? You needed kids to help your family out. And now when you're in a stage 4 country, now that's kind of an extra bonus. Like it's a nice to have, right? It's nice to have kids. You don't necessarily have to have kids in a stage 4 country because you're not necessarily needed as much to have kids, okay? So when we're thinking about these types of things, you have the best of all of the things. What type of country do we think this is going to be? Yeah, an MDC, for sure. It's like where we are, okay? We are in a stage 4 country. We have stable growth. Our population, we didn't do this for stage 2 or stage 3, but in stage 4, our population here is like upper middle ages. Oh, what? Upper middle ages. So then our pyramid's going to look like what? Yeah, kind of like a Coke bottle, where you have most of your people in that upper age. Ugh, so bad. So bad, I know. I laugh every time. Where most of your people are the workers, right? And getting a little bit older because we have the best healthcare, so people are living the longest in like a stage 4 country, okay? You have the best healthcare, all of those things, okay? All right. Let's talk about our population and the other ones that I forgot about. So in an NIC country, in like stage 3, when you have moderate growth, your population is going to be what? Probably like young adults. It's growing. That median age, remember from the population pyramids last week, that gray line kept moving up and up each time when you got more developed. And then for stage 2, our population is young, right? We're a triangle. So let's talk about some of these questions then. What 3 pieces of data are included on the DTM? You tell me. What have we been talking about? BR, DR, and not so much total population as it is the growth rate, which we call what? That's in the blue. The rate of natural increase, okay? That is the growth rate, all right? Yes, you're given total population, but the way that blue line changes on the graph is the growth rate, okay, is the difference between the birth rate and the death rate. So those are the 3 things that are given to you. We talked about the characteristics in each stage. That's why it's written all over. Which way does a country move through the DTM? That's not a trick question. What? Yeah, to the right, from left to right. Okay, you're not going to go back. You're not going to go down. You're not going to go from right to left. You're going to move through the stage from left to right. Left to right. And then what causes a country to move through the DTM? What's the difference here? Industrialization. See how it's all coming together? It's why we started off with that unit first. Industrialization. Okay? So, that's how it gets us there. So I stopped at stage 4 because stage 5 is not guaranteed, okay? You will always probably see stage 5 tacked on at the end, but not every country is going to make it to stage 5, and that's okay. The goal is to stop at stage 4, okay? That is where you want to be, is in stage 4. We, the U.S., are in stage 4, okay? But let's talk about stage 5. Stage 5. Stage 5, let's go back and talk about our statistics like we just were. What is happening with our statistics over here? Well, let's think about the 3 things that are given to us. What are the 3 things given to us? Birth rate, death rate, NRI. So what do we see here in stage 5? What do those things look like? They're decreasing. Why? Specifically, what do our stats look like? What's happening? Janae?
Death rate is larger than the birth rate.
Yeah, the death rate is larger than the birth rate. So the death rate goes above. Therefore, that blue line, our rate of natural increase, remember the difference between the birth rate and the death rate, this stuff here in between, the green line and the yellow line down here, means that we have what type of growth rate? What's that number going to look like? I'm not a math brain, but I know that it's going to be negative, right? Because your death rate is now bigger than your birth rate. So we have a negative NRI because our birth rate is above, or our death rate is above the birth rate, okay? So exactly what you guys are saying, we see a decline in our population, a declining population. So our population structure then, if we have a bunch of old people, or if we have a bunch of people dying, I just told you, we're going to have a bunch of old people in our population, okay? So our pyramid is going to probably look more like an upside down triangle. On the pyramid that's given on the left over here is Italy. And you can see it really does look like most of our people in our pyramid are in that box right there, right? Because the bottom part of our pyramid is decreasing. It's getting smaller and smaller and smaller with each new generation that's added, right? So you can see a decline that is starting to happen there. So when we're thinking about a stage 5 country, is it going to be a rich country or going to be a poor country? Yeah, it's going to be a rich country. So sometimes you might think that it's a poor country because it's something bad that's happening. But really, if you have people living to be really old, then you know you have good health care. So it is an MDC countries that are going to be facing this potential declining population, okay? So when we're thinking about future stage 5 countries, there's a lot of things that a country has to think about that hopefully you guys were talking about in your questions 5 and 6 from your pyramid chart last class. But when a country reaches stage 5, you have to start thinking about like maybe what type of healthcare funding you're going to have. If you have such a large population of old people, how are you going to take care of them, right? You have to have a lot of maybe more specialized doctors. Did I tell you about how old my granny is last class? She's going to be 94 in a few weeks, okay? In the upper part of our pyramid, for sure, she requires some extra help, okay, and specialized doctors to deal with older people. And she lives in an assisted living community, and so they all need some specialized doctors sometimes, right? But also, like, how are we going to pay for those people? Because at that point, like, Granny's not working anymore, but her health care funding that we pay into, our tax dollars pay into, so that she can pull from that retirement and for all of that stuff. When you get older, you have to start thinking about how you're going to put into that. And if you don't have enough workers in your working age population, then how are you going to take care of all of the old people, okay? You also have to start thinking about maybe pro-natalist policies. This is a vocab term from our unit. You should have read about it in chapter 4, I believe. But pro-natalist policies, there are pro and there are anti-natalist policies. You are familiar with anti-natalist policies. What was one that we've talked about? What is an anti-natalist policy? An example. Yeah, the one-child policy, right? That was trying to restrict people being born, babies being born. So that was anti-natalist. So a pro-natalist policy is trying to encourage people to have kids. Okay, pro-natalist policies can be a lot of things. Someone from A-Day last week looked up a bunch of examples. You can have like a stipend for having extra kids. They'll pay you to have extra kids, basically. Sometimes companies will encourage like daycare facilities inside the company, because if you're thinking like, man, maybe I just don't want to have kids anymore. If you're like Italy or Japan, that's a declining population. Sometimes people will just choose not to have kids. But to encourage having kids, sometimes companies will have like daycares inside their companies to help encourage people to have kids, thinking that if maybe a reason why they wouldn't have kids is because they wouldn't want to pay for daycare. So they're trying to eliminate that from being like a reason not to have kids by just including daycare in the companies. Another one, there's another good one that I'm forgetting about. What is it? Oh, maternity leave. I think someone, I don't know where it is, but someone in my last class from last week said that some pro-natalist policies can be like extended maternity leave. And he looked it up, and there's a country, I don't know what country it is, but they had 3 years of maternity leave. Which is like crazy. You'd have like a freaking toddler at that point before you even went back to work. But you're like guaranteed, obviously, like that job when you come back. But it was 3 years, which is really crazy compared to like what we have, which I don't even know what we have, 6, 8, 9 weeks, something like that.
Paternity leave too.
Yeah, we do have paternity leave, and that's another pro-natalist policy, is to have extended paternity leave for the dads too, to take off and not be like penalized or whatever from their jobs too. So all of those are pro-natalist policies to help encourage people to have kids, and that's what you have to think about with a declining population if you're going to have a struggling population in the future. Okay, does all that make sense? Yeah. Okay. Let's answer some questions on the next slide. You can see our pyramids are down there. That's better than what I gave you, so that's good. Let's think about what these questions are. Notice that stage 1 does not have a population pyramid because we talked about how there's not a country in stage 1 today. So that's why there's not a pyramid that goes with that one. But let's look at our questions on the right side. How are stage 1 and stage 4 similar? Let's talk about it. What? How are stage 1? Who said it? Birth rate and death rate are what? Can you be more specific? Because I just thought about that 2 different ways in my head.
In stage 4, birth rate and death rate are both low. In stage 1, they're both high.
Yes. Okay. So that's how they're different. BR and DR are low here, and in stage 1, they are high. Right? So then that's how they're different. So then how are they the same? How are they the same? What?
Is it like the death rate is almost like the exact same?
Well, that's what Avishi's saying, is that they're similar, right? The birth rate and the death rate are close to each other in both stage 1 and in stage 4. So then what does that tell us about our growth rate? Are we growing? Look at our blue line. Is there a lot of growth in stage 1 and stage 4? No. You have low, or really it's kind of like stable growth, because in stage 1, you're kind of canceling each other out, right? Because everybody's dying and there's a lot of people being born, okay? So you have stable growth there. There's not much change, right? It's very low. Total population in the world during this time is very low, okay? Think about like the dots video that we watched last week, right? When the population, you could see all the dots like booming, you know? And for a really long time, it was just very low. That was like when the world was stage 1, okay? And then by the end of the video, right, all of the dots were like blowing up all over that map, you know? That was after industrialization. The goal is to get to stage 4 when this growth in stage 4 is also stable growth, because now our birth and our death rates are also low. Okay, so goal is to get to stage 4, but they have low growth in both of those. Okay. Yes, that's it. Let's look at what you're going to do for quick practice to see if you can understand the difference between the birth rates and the death rates. So you are going to, actually you need to open up this presentation, because you need to click on where it says here and open up a new, you'll open up that file. But if you notice, all of our category 1, 2, and 3 countries, these are the same countries that we used the other day for our population pyramids, but now you are given each of the birth rates and the death rates. It's a Google Draw template that you need to open up, okay? So all of those orange buttons out to the side, those are drag and droppable, okay? So you're gonna drag each of the countries based on their birth rate and their death rate to the correct stage on that chart, okay? The first one is given for you. The US is already out there. What's our birth rate and our death rate numbers on that chart? 12 and 8, right? So our birth rate is 12, our death rate is 8. They're both low numbers and they're close together, but our birth rate is still a little bit above our death rate, so that's why we are in stage 4, okay? So based on those numbers, in comparison to 12 and 8, you need to compare all of the other numbers for each country, okay? So I'll give you a few minutes to drag and drop each of those countries into the right stage.